Hello there, Reason users, PoohBear here, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at using MPE inside of Reason. Yes, you can use MPE devices inside of Reason. There's a little bit of a setup, but what I'm going to do is I'll go through the very first bit and discuss about MIDI and exactly what MPE is and how they actually relate, because once you understand how they relate, you realise actually how easy it is to set these up inside of Reason, and we can build any rack extension or VST into basically an MPE compatible device. So I'm very quickly going to literally only a few seconds, play that subtractor, but show you that I've got a few expressions going on already from this MPE device. So MPE stands for MIDI Polyphonic Expression. It is nothing special at all, but I do think MPE itself is very clever because it's built on top of box standard MIDI. They haven't done anything else special to it. It's just something which is standard MIDI and built this new specification or this new extension from that. So let's just very basically think about a quick sort of expressions you get with a standard keyboard. Well, let's be honest. There's velocity, so depending on how hard you hit the key, obviously it will vary the actual velocity level. We could have aftertouch, so afterwards we could sort of push the key in more or not, and that will obviously give you another expression. On a lot of obviously MIDI controllers, we have the pitch wheel, and we've got a modulation wheel, so let's see even more. And then with a lot of them, we can obviously connect up an expression pedal as well, or even several. So when you think about it, that one key now has, obviously, it's got velocity, it's got aftertouch, it's got a pitch bend, it's got a modulation wheel, it could even have an expression wheel. So there's quite a lot of expressions to one key. Now this is where MIDI kind of falls down is, well, what about if I want to press two keys? Well, fair enough. They've both got their separate velocity levels. There are keyboards which can have polyphonic aftertouch. Most keyboards are just what we refer to as channel aftertouch. So if I was applying aftertouch on this key, it's going to apply it to everything else which is coming out because it's applying it to the actual instrument you're playing. And so you can get some which have poly. So that's good. So we've got velocity and we've also got a poly aftertouch. That's great. Well, the pitch bend and the mod wheel are again related to the instrument you're actually really controlling. So that's per channel. And the same with the expression pedal. So this is where obviously box standard MIDI kind of falls down from the expression point of view, and this is where MPE kind of stands in. What they decided to do to try and be clever about it, they're using box standard MIDI, but you've got to remember MIDI on the MIDI port comes in 16 channels. So most times you're plugging in a MIDI port, there's 16 channels which go from 1 to 16, or in the actual MIDI world, we program from 0 to F, which is be 0 to 15. Now I say it's clever because what they've done is they've obviously then decided to use the different MIDI channels per note. So that means on channel, and it doesn't actually start on channel 1 because there's usually channel 1 would be what we call the global channel. That's like a controlling channel. On that other MPE device you saw at the beginning, that actually has 2 control channels, and some other MPE devices might have more. It depends how many times you split it down into their own little sort of multiple groups. But anyway, let's keep it basic. We've got ourselves our MIDI channel, say MIDI channel 2. That can obviously have that key pressing down. It can also have an aftertouch to it. Obviously we need a special keyboard. Then can we get into pitch bend? Obviously what you saw earlier with my other keyboard, I could do a slide. I've also got, some people call it a glide. Some people refer to the slide as going as the y-axis. I prefer to say it's the y-axis. Again, it really does vary from MPE controller to MPE controller what they decide to call things. And we've also got X and Y, so on some you can actually wiggle X and Y. So that starts to give you the expressions per note, and then that's per channel. So if I was to hold 2 down, this would be on channel 2, this is going to be on channel 3, and then that would be channel 4, that would be channel 5, 6. But you can see there's going to be a limitation that you're only going to play up to maximum of 50 notes, but not a problem. We've only got 10 fingers, so we shouldn't really have a problem. And I personally really don't play 10 notes at a time. I mean, I maybe every now and then might play a 5-note chord with my left hand, but this is usually then off screen doing the melody sort of stuff, so it's not like I'm really doing heavy chords. But anyway, getting sidetracked. I think there is obviously enough variety there that having 15 channels is more than enough, as I say, because we've only got 10 fingers, so that's not a problem. And that's all they've done. So they've taken box standard MIDI, they've kind of pushed it onto its end, and then we're stacking up the voices per channel, and that's how basic MPE works. So how does that really then now relate back to Reason? We have MPE VSTs. So basically these VSTs have been split up in such a way that they're multi-layered, they're listening on different MIDI channels, so they're expecting data to come in on different MIDI channels, and then obviously they're going to push that control value off to go and control certain parameters on that particular device. Now Reason does not support natively MPE VSTs. And the reason it doesn't support it is because when MIDI actually comes into Reason, Reason does not have the ability to bring MIDI in on its separate channels, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it's going to be, and then retain that information when it passes it over to the actual instrument. So Reason effectively works in what we refer to as a on-me mode, which basically means any port you come in on, or should I say any channel you come in on, it effectively will pass that to the same instrument, and the instrument just acts on it. It doesn't actually look at it and say, oh, you're coming on channel 3, I must do this. You're on channel 4, I do something different. It doesn't look at that. Effectively, you could say all these different channels are like channel 1 coming out the other side, and that's how the instruments see it. So how we get around that inside Reason is we need to have a codec file, which I happen to have written and I've actually released, which is MIDI channel aware. So I've got all these different service controllers set up, he says. So I was pointing at the wrong screen. And they're all pointing at the same MIDI port, but they're all working on different channels. So they're all filtering the data on the different channels. So when it does come in on channel, say 8, it filters it on 8 and goes, right, I'm only interested in data on channel 8. I've now got that as a surface controller, and I can now lock that surface controller to a device. So this device now would only be getting information on channel 8. And then what I can do is I can come along and say, I'm going to make that channel 9, I can make that channel 10, and so on and so forth. So now each of these devices are receiving their own bit of information, and then obviously depending on which MPE device I'm actually using, what other expressions I'm actually pushing out, I can automatically then start controlling parameters. Because these are service controllers, we have what's called mappings behind them. So when I get my ear ray here, this is handsome in my ear ray, that's the little flashy one you saw at the beginning, I can come along and I've got a mapping written for subtractor. So when I point it automatically at subtractor, my y-axis, or the slide, something I like to call it, automatically changes the amount. Obviously I've got the aftertouch or the pressure. Well, that's already got aftertouch built into this subtractor, so I automatically point it to that. And then obviously I take control of the pitch bend wheel, and I actually have another one which will actually take control of the mod wheel. So, and that's as a mapping, so as default I can now just come along with this point at subtractor. It works. I've done my Europa, and I've done a few other instruments as well, which I'm using a lot for using the MP stuff. So I don't have to keep doing it again and again and again. However, I do also like to build individual instruments into individual combinators. And the reason I do that is because obviously I can make my y-axis, say, control that, my x I can control that, so it's like the wiggle. I can have the pressure controlling that, I could do something else controlling that. So on my Rolly I've got strikes and I've got lifts and I've got other expressions, so we can control different knobs. And the reason I control different knobs in a combinator is because now I can actually control groups of parameters. So I'm not just tied to one parameter. If I do my y-axis, I can control several things. And that's where the power really starts to come in. So yes, it does mean I'm going to have several combinators, which will have several which will each have one subtractor in, but that's my different voices. So for every voice I wish to play, I have a new combinator with my subtractor, but it allow me to then control multiple parameters just from a single expression. It really does make it incredibly powerful. And obviously you could use VSTs. You're not just stuck to using rack extensions. You can use whatever you want to point, anything which can receive let's call it Reason MIDI, yeah, you'll be able to get this to work. And it is that straightforward. It is that straightforward. So we'll have a look at how we can actually get this all built up and where we can actually get our codec files and all the rest of it. So one of the first things that we need to set ourselves up is obviously a MIDI channel aware codec. And basically what that means is that we've got our 16 channels, which we've just spoken about, which we're going to be bringing in. And we need a codec file which we can actually analyze each channel, and then from that each channel we're going to have its own specific service controller which we can then go and lock off to an instrument. Now I've happened to done a video already which is called the MIDI channel aware MIDI codec for Reason for any MIDI controller. So basically I'm just going to play it for the next minute because it's going to do my job for me very easily, but I'll put the link into this video as well so you can watch the full video, but this is the main part from that video. First thing you need to do is get yourself to the Dropbox in the description, click on the download, and then obviously when you're prompted you need to save it somewhere. Remember where you've saved it to. Open up that zip file and you can see in there's a readme and there's a remote directory, and what we want to do is we want to copy that remote directory over. Again, I'll put descriptions in, ProgramData, Propellerhead, and just drop it in there. You get prompted that there's a remote name already existing, go for it. Also note, there's a little note, there could be one other location on Windows that you may have to install it to, but it's either one or the other, it's not both of them. And that's it, that's the installation done. And that really is the installation done. So let's get rid of that window. And so here we are back in a fresh version of Reason, where what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually set up my Rolly. So what I'm actually going to be able to do here, I should be able to zoom in for us. Here we go. Let's see if I can get the screen locked. The screen can go all over the place. I'm not careful, it's not quite locked. Let's try again. There we go. And so it's going to be a simple case. We're going to add manual, come down here, go to PoohBear. Come down here, you can see all the different MIDI channels. As I said to you, channel 1 happens to be the control channel, so I'm going to start off with MIDI channel 2, and I need to come down here, I've got to scroll down, and there's my C board. So that is my MIDI port, and I'm now going to be listening on that particular channel, channel 02. What I'm actually going to do here though is very, very quickly just put in the word, maybe I should put the word C board in, rise, it'd been a lot easier. So I'm just going to put that in and click OK, and then got to do that a couple more times, and wow, isn't it brilliant with the new version of Reason 13.0.2 that we can actually do this really, really speedy. This used to be a really slow process on my system because I've got hundreds of service controllers set up. So here we go down again, but you can see why, you know, you can knock out 16 just by adding the C board and my other controller. I've got, I've set it up twice because I've got it in what I refer to as normal MIDI mode, because the other controller you saw at the beginning is a very, very good MIDI controller for actually controlling parameters within devices, not just for playing. You can obviously control the mixer, all sorts of other things. Right, so here we go, C board rise, that's good enough for me. Click, 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 click. And that bit's done. So if I zoom out a little bit, he says, hopefully, yeah, there we go. And then all I'm going to do now is, let's go into browser and let's come here and, here we go, let's grab some of these. These will do 1, 2, 3, and let's see if we can click on close. Now I'm not sure I can actually do this because what I need to do is at this stage you right click and you need to, you pick your MIDI ports. Unfortunately, all my MIDI ports happen to be right at the bottom, so it's going to be a lot quicker for me just to come out here and say, believe me, when I'm now picking up C board 02, C board 03, and C board 04. So that's all them selected. If I now quickly go over here and turn my camera back on. So theoretically, there we go, we're actually working. Ideally, you need to set it up for all the channels, depending on your actual controller. As I said, my other controller, I do set up all 16 channels, so I use 2 control channels, so I can punt data down them as well. I've noticed with the Rolly, it doesn't seem to actually use the control channel, but that's fine because it's pumping everything down the individual MIDI channels, which is obviously the important thing. They manage voices differently from one system to another. I noticed with my other device, it really does sort of always drop back to the lowest note possible. This one does a round robin, But if I play the same note again and again, it stays on that note. Or sorry, it stays on that voice, so it's staying on that one combinator. Then I can go to another one. So it's like it remembers it. So there we go, we're actually up and running. So I can now, obviously, the final step, I suppose, quite simply, don't really have to prove this, but here we go. If we come down here, open this up, hit record. You can see we're actually recording. There's the pitch bend in there as well. Now, I know I said earlier that we cannot run MPE synthesizers actually inside Reason. We have to turn the MPE off. I'm actually going to show you how we can actually run an MPE synthesizer inside Reason, because it's quickly to do, but there's lots of drawbacks, like you can't record the MIDI, but obviously you can record the output, so you can record the audio, and I'll do it because it is nice and quick. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to load up cursory elements to do this, and I must admit I'm using the effects version over the instrument version only because I'm running two versions of elements, different versions of elements actually on this machine. And so hence I can run one as an effects, let's put this over here, and I can run one as an instrument. And the reason I do that is because this version here, let's have a quick look at it, version 46.2, the latest is 46.6. That doesn't quite support performance data, so there's some issues there with performance data. So let me zoom this in so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to quickly find equator. That's something what comes with the keyboard. And what we're also going to want is the MIDI. So I'm going to right click, input device, there it is, keyboard rise. I'm going to take that MIDI and plug it into the equator 2. I'm going to take the two audios out and plug it into the audio out, and that audio out goes straight into Reason. So now when I play this, this is going to play, and you can see it playing in Reason. Now let me go and quickly grab that over because it's opened up on another screen. Let's see if we can make sure we can see this. Yet there it is. And let's go a little bit bigger, very, very quickly, and just very, very basically. This is the MPE side. So these are the expressions what we can have with this particular keyboard. So obviously when I play something, you're going to start seeing these little dots appearing. So if I pull my hand out really quickly, this yellow one should sort of shoot up to the lift, and it gives that chingy sound. There you go, so that is now running an MPE instrument inside Reason. What making this video today is actually prompted me to do a quick improv with my MPE controllers and my normal controllers, and I'm just going to bring it all together. I've got some processed pianos here, I've got some few other sound effects, using a big shimmer, so I'm using loads and loads of reverbs. My strings are made up from modular V, so I've got stacked quite a few of them up together. I think it's about 27 sawtooth oscillators, and I'm going to be using a bit of a voltage modulator as well. And yeah, let's bring it all together, and that just leaves me to say thank you for watching and bye for now.